We're really pleased to have you here today, Mark. Thank you for joining us.
Good to be here.
And actually, if you'd like to just introduce yourself quickly to our audience, tell us, your role at Trov, and even a little bit of background on how you got to become co-founder of Trov and what led you to that position.
My name is Mark Dowds. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Trov, which sounds very fancy until you boil it down to what I'm really accountable for, which is ultimately revenue for the company. So I'm responsible for pulling together the partnerships and sort of longer term revenue and our long-term sustainability. So it's fun. I get to work with lots of interesting incumbents, distribution partners, all that sort of stuff.
In the insurance space?
In the insurance space, yes. So we're an insurtech company. So a lot of my responsibilities is working with underwriters. Like we've partnered with Munich Re in the digital partner side of things, also with Sampo in Japan, with AXA in the UK, with Suncorp in Australia. And we're sort of growing that list at the moment. But also on the distribution side, which could be a technology company, a bank, or somebody who's setting up a digital insurance wing or part of their business model. So we're finding that there's lots of companies today that have customers and data, and what they're looking for is a platform to deploy interesting insurance products for their customers.
Yeah, so let's talk about that idea that you're working with a lot of incumbents, and so they have a legacy business model, they have legacy processes. I don't think I'm going out on a limb and saying that you're looking to disrupt that.
Yes. We didn't go out initially to disrupt. I suppose there was an aspect of it. We thought if we bring new data into that world, it could certainly enhance it, disrupt it, whatever way you want to look at that. What we ended up doing as we built and deployed our initial products is that we realized that the insurance companies, the large incumbents, didn't really have the technology systems behind them to deploy these new initiatives. So these old systems weren't able to process dynamic data, or they weren't able to process information like by the second. So we ended up building a platform to deploy these new products that calculates risk dynamically. It prices it by the second. It can bill in any increment to any party. So it's got all the flexibility which the legacy systems lack in these big insurance companies.
Right, and this idea of disruption maybe is sometimes seen as a dirty word of people are trying to avoid being disrupted, but in your case, you're looking to partner with the incumbents and the underwriters and form there's a value proposition there that you're bringing to the table that says we're better together. Yeah,
exactly right. So what you find in the insurtech space is there's a lot of insurtech folks that are emerging, and their mission is really to say, okay, we're out to try and eat the lunch off the big insurers. We're doing the opposite. We're partnering with folks that are not insurance, but we're also working with the insurers to say we can take you into the next sort of century here, or decade, or wherever they get stuck. So we're enabling them to compete with insurtechs, for lack of a better term.
And you said where they get stuck.
Yeah.
Is there a sense for you? I know that Trov as a global organization is touching in different markets.
Yeah.
Is there kind of a consistent theme that relates to that idea that maybe it's technology, maybe it's process, maybe it's business model, where this opportunity has come to the fore for you guys?
Yeah, pretty much every country and every insurer that we've worked with, we've realized that their systems are archaic, and they're living off old sort of annual policies, heavily paper-based behind the scenes. So the idea of digitizing what currently exists, is a very expensive or impossible feat. So we're coming alongside them, almost like a satellite, to be able to enable them to play in a new digital space without having to transform everything from the inside out. We're helping them to sort of test, learn, build, grow in a digital way, and our hope is that that can be the platform that can displace some of the older systems that exist today.
When you look at this idea of there's a technology limitation, there's a data limitation, and working on the software side of things, That's not all about automation or what's happening behind the scenes. I think you spend a lot of time with Trov on looking at what is the customer value. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we've looked at what is the customer value and where are the trends, where are things moving and shifting. If you're to look at a property and casualty insurer, like a retail insurer, or like a known brand, sort of somewhere between, for the majority, 40 to 50% of their book of business is auto, as an example. That world is changing rapidly, as we all know. You know, you've got Uber, Lyft, you've got Waymo and autonomous vehicles, and every OEM basically emerging with new tech and data. So that world of mobility is going to completely change what car ownership means, what mobility means in a sense, and where does insurance then begin to play? So in that sense, we're getting into that world along with these sort of looking at what the customer needs, where the customer is going, and then beginning to say, how do we then systematize that new process, gather the data in, and then iterate continuously on product to match their lifestyle and their needs. So there's been a lot of talk within the insurance world about profiling people, but it's normally been negative in the sense of profiling their risks, so it's quite punitive. And what we're doing is trying to find new data sources to basically enhance the user experience. So rather than saying we're gathering data to basically limit what you can do, we want to gather data so that we can customize what you can receive. So we're trying to turn that on its head.
How does that process come about as far as you're looking for practical solutions for a changing market?
Yep.
How do you investigate that?
We've done a lot of research, but also we've got companies that come to us. So we've got innovators. Well, I'll use Waymo as an example, Alphabet's autonomous vehicle company. In that environment, they've already done the research. They know where the world is going, or they have a belief set on that. So in that environment, when we get engaged or we have conversations with them, they've already done the research. They see where the world's moving, and then we get behind them. So the benefit of working and doing this stuff in partnership is we find those partners that are already thinking about where the world's changing, or who have customers that some of the old protection stuff's not working any longer. So then they come to us as an innovative partner, and as well as an insurance platform.
So is there a process of experimentation or a process of kind of validation that you're going through, testing out different options for consumers?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, before we get to build, we'll do lots of testing. We'll do a lot of design thinking. We'll do all the workshopping that most companies today are, well, maybe not most should be doing, but some of the leading companies are doing today. So we'll test, iterate a lot around screens and user experiences and stories to see how the potential customer engages with that, and that'll help enhance what we build. Yeah, so it's one of those worlds today. If you have an idea and you go out and build it, it can be quite costly, and you're almost guaranteed to fail when you launch. So we try to get as much information from our customers, get enough feedback before we really build. And when we build as lightly as possible so we can deploy, iterate, change, because I don't think today anyone can get it right on the first go.
Yeah, I think that includes process, right?
Yeah.
How do we adapt quickly? How do we connect with consumers and gain value out of that process?
Yep.
Do you bring customers or partners, the incumbents that you're working with, into the types of workshops that you're doing as well?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, we do everything in collaboration. It's like we've got various subject matter experts in the company, obviously, but we also have sort of master facilitators. So we'll bring them in. In fact, today at head office, we've got one of the larger banks that we're working with to help them think through a new proposition in the market. And so it'll be like a 3-day long design thinking workshop so we'll just apply lead them through processes they've never been through before, which then they're more enriched to go back into their own companies, and they've got new skill sets.
So that might even be that's not even necessarily a pre-sales exercise. It's let's uncover the strategic opportunity here and then see what fits.
Yeah, and quite often in those workshops, there's so many other ideas or thoughts that surface that may not be our focus, but there's other people internally within their companies that go, actually, that's a hot opportunity for us as well. So yeah, end up surfacing a lot more than just the project or product that we're working on.
Yeah, this isn't just about travel, it's about the idea that you're going out to work at a cafe and you're in a sense mobile all the time.
Yeah.
Especially the gig economy is increasing this as well, where you're not even going to the same job place every day.
Yeah. Yeah, and the gig economy is a fantastic one to think about because you can be traveling with your laptop, but it's your personal laptop, and so then if you're caught working with that, or if you were to be honest on the disclosure saying, well, I was working in the coffee shop when it was stolen, and
right.
So then it's a very fine line, or a very blurry line today, especially with the rise of this freelance generation or the gig economy. It's growing so fast that again, a lot of people are just using their personal kit for work, and then it's sort of not really insured. Or if you think about a wedding photographer, where now what you have to now buy insurance if you're if you're going to be doing this professionally. Right. But if you're using the kit personally, do you really need that expensive insurance, or do you only need it for that day? So there's a lot of new nuances that are emerging at the moment.
You're steeped in these ideas around lean methodologies and being quick to fail and understanding how to get to that sooner so that you can make a smarter decision rather than even the idea of waterfall development. You're saying, well, we started with a strategy. Do we keep hammering at that, or do we let it go and because the market's taking us in a different direction?
Yeah.
How easy is it to have those conversations with legacy businesses who don't have your risk tolerance and don't have this experience that you have?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's not even the legacy. I said it's a difficult conversation to have externally with partners and legacy, but it's a difficult conversation to have internally as an executive,
right, or
as board, or with investors. So you've got, or with the wider team, because you rally behind a particular idea or strategy for a long time, and it takes guts to look at something and go, you know what, it's not fully formed, or there is a better way or a smarter way. And it takes some political management and wisdom and some patience. I used to come from years ago it would have been if there was a significant change that needed to be had, I just did it. Right. Where now you've got to pause and you've got to think about the ramifications, you've got to think about the strategy of what it would mean, the implications, and think it through from a business model perspective. So I think there's just a little bit more wisdom and patience that comes with it. Internally at Trov, we basically say that what we lead with is humility, wisdom, and courage. So we try to remember who we are and what we're not. Borrow from the wisdom in the sense of not just those in leadership, but from the company itself. Learn from what successes and failures of the past, but then having enough courage to have a go at it, because there's a lot of things you don't know all the information on, and it just takes a little bit of risk and to go for something every so often.
Yeah, well, and it's even interesting to know, knowing the history of Trov, how much you've shifted product based on this exploration of the market, which was really exploring insurance.
Wow.
And where does that lead you? You've been down many paths.
Insurance is a big world. When we entered into it, I don't think we saw the numbers behind the market share, but it's not until you get into it until you realize how complex it really is, what it means from learning cost of acquisition within an insurance market is completely different from cost of acquisition in social media and other businesses that I've been involved in, or learning that it's not just the acquisition of a customer, but it's the acquisition of the right customer. If you acquire all the wrong ones, it's problematic as well.
Risk problem.
Yeah. Your underwriters wouldn't like you if you did that. So there's a whole new world to be explored within insurance, and I think a lot of insurers themselves are unaware of the origins of their business. So for us, it's sort of going back to think on, why does insurance exist? Why is it is it an important pillar of our society? Will the longer term disruption completely eradicate it, or will it always be there? And so in that sense, we recognize that it is an important pillar of society because it enables society to take risk. enables us to do things without fear. You know, if we had no insurance on the home we own or on the car that we drive, there would be a certain amount of fear would enter as you go any day you get into the car itself.
Well, as a homeowner, you say this is maybe a significant part of my retirement, which could go up literally in smoke at any moment.
Yeah, so enabling that, so that peace of mind, and to say the risk taking or the ability to leverage your, rather than stockpiling all your wealth, it enables you then to be able to spend it on other things. So there's a lot of benefits with insurance, because insurance can come across to a lot of people almost like a dirty word. It's one of those grudge purchases for most. But the more I've got into it, I'm realizing actually this is an important part of our lives, and if framed correctly, it could be something that that we could embrace over time.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Of the idea of framing it correctly means looking at how the market is shifting, looking at how behavior is changing, and understanding how do we adapt the models to that, or come up with a new model that serves a changing environment. Right? How much of the discussion is around risk and data and how technology mitigates risk?
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation around what we're doing. Is really I think a lot of our partners are doing this because we're getting into gathering new data that it's one of the competitive advantages that we bring a partner, is that we're going to bring them data that they can't get anywhere else. There's an old Irish saying that there's 2 times to plant a tree. It's either 20 years ago or today. You know, in some ways we can look in 20 years' time, you know, everyone's going to want this data, but who's willing to plant the tree today and to be patient with that as it grows? So our hope and what we're doing is that we're, say, planting a tree, we're going to grow, we're going to gather the data, and, you know, 5, 10, 20 years into the future, you know, we can look back and go, we were the ones that were wise enough to see that this was coming, and that data would change the world.
Can you share a little bit of an example of what it is that you're bringing to the table from a data point of view?
From a data point of view, if I think about the mobility space, we're going to be launching a new product in the market that really focuses for car owners and non-car owners alike. And what we're doing with partnering with those individuals is helping to understand how they move in life. So with the use of something like the accelerometer within the phone, we're able to tell whether you're driving, whether it's your spouse is driving, or a friend, whether you're on a ferry, whether you're on a train, whether you're on a bicycle, and we can begin to map those patterns and understand really who you are and what's what sort of persona. You know, are you a single mom? Are you a power shopper? Or do you have a full-time job? Do you work from home? You know, there's a lot of these things we can do, because if in building this new rich data around that we actually can get to the point where we understand you, then we can say, well, we can cater new protection and new lifestyle coverage around who you are. So I think data like that can be extraordinarily valuable, as long as it's for the benefit of the customer and as long as they've opted in. You know, because I think that's the fine line that we have today, where as long as we're focused on customer value, then customers will continuously let us analyze that data.
We talk a lot about digital transformation and this idea that we're leveraging technology for all the benefits around speed and data and being able to learn very quickly from behavior. But process is so much a part of that transformation.
Yeah.
The digital is the new piece of the puzzle that isn't being leveraged as well as it can be, but it requires a change in culture. It requires a change in process. Yeah. So when we talk about the idea of policy or regulation being in the way, that's, you even mentioned the idea that your sales cycles are, could be 12, 18 months plus. That's an easy problem. Changing policy can be, 36, 48 months long. But I think it's a necessary part of probably some of the work that you're doing as well, is to have these conversations with the people who have the regulations in place to say, this is no longer applicable. What do we do about this?
Yeah, we had this conversation this morning because we think about mobility and how that's changing. So within Ontario, there's high levels of regulation what you can and cannot do with a motor product. So there's some of that we understand why the regulation is there. It's to protect the people, but now as new data comes in and as sort of new opportunities arise with this, it's going to really turn things upside down. So there's going to be a benefit or a need to start engaging, from a regulatory and from the Department of Finance to sort of get them involved in the conversation so that they can recognize the benefit the benefit and need there is at the moment to change some of these things.
The best way to do that is to bring data. So
Right.
The more that we can gather that information around behavior, we can then provide that as a tool in and of itself to help innovate.
Great.
So you've shaped Trov and reshaped Trov over the course of the last 5 years around a shifting market. Where do you see that trending?
Yeah, for us as a company, we see that trending into beyond the products that we have under our own brand in the market. So we're starting to leverage the platform of which we built that was necessary to deploy these innovative solutions to now. So our future looks like many products powered by Trov. So we can imagine launching a product for folks who rent homes, a product for folks who own homes, a product for people who don't own cars, a product for folks who do own cars. So we start to work with partners, with their data, with their customers, and build and deploy these new digital initiatives, and then start bringing those to a global audience. So
in a sense, you see as well that current products aren't going away, but the market's becoming more and more fractured as behavior's changing. Yeah. So you're not going to have these big whales of auto is 60%. It's now going to start breaking down into smaller little silos of products and services.
I would say it's very similar to what happened in the fintech world, or in the financial sector. You had these break-offs of payments sectors, little different pieces of components that were then taken away by other folks. I think we'll see the same in the insurance world, and our hope is that we can work with a lot of these folks to digitize that experience and to bring a more seamless opportunity. But ultimately for us, it's Trov as a platform is the way forward.